Okay.
The Apple test.
Okay, so I think we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Hello, everyone. Good evening to all of you. Dhamma greetings to all the venerable monks. There are no nuns today. I actually invited a few nuns to join us, so let's see, maybe they are going to join later. So let us begin our bi-weekly sutta discussion by paying respect and homage to the Buddha. Let us recite Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. So I would like to wish happy Poson to all of you. Last Friday we had the Poson full moon day, and that's very this full moon day is very significant to the Sri Lankan Buddhists because that is the day that they celebrate the arrival of Buddhism to Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BCE. That's the very reason why we have chosen the sutra Venerable Arhat Mahinda preached this sutra to then Sri Lankan King Devanampiyattissa, which helped the king and his 40,000 followers embracing Buddhism. And so why is it so important, this sutra? This is what we are going to talk about. But before we get into the discussion, I would like to introduce our venerable monks to our audience. So we have Venerable Trudeau joining the discussion from Florida. And then we have Venerable Bhante Nanda joining the discussion from the Long Island, New York. And then we have Venerable Bhante Sanatha Vihari joining the discussion from Los Angeles. And we have Venerable Bhante Kosala joining the discussion from Boston. And then we have Venerable Shanta Sobana joining the discussion from Los Angeles. Then we have Venerable Bhante Jayasara. He's joining the discussion from New York this time. I know you joined the discussion from different cities.
I'm in New Jersey now for
New Jersey now.
for divassa, yes. So I'll be in New Jersey for a while.
And we have Bhikkhuni Shaika Dhammadinna. If you like, you could have your video on so that people can see. The very reason I asked you to join the Sutra discussion, Venerable Dhammadinna, because I want to introduce you to our audience. Venerable Dhammadinna is an Indian bhikkhuni who is doing amazing service, spreading Dharma not only in India, but also in the United States, here in Canada. So we had the great privilege of meeting Venerable Dhammadinna together with 2 more nuns, Cambodian and the Vietnamese nun, and the Indian nun, you. And yeah, so very happy to see you, and very happy to see your Dhamma activities. And I know when you go back to India, you may not have time, but today you're free. I just wanted you to join the discussion and introduce you to our audience. So because we need monks and nuns to spread Dharma. So I would like to give a warm welcome to all the venerable monks and to Bhikkhuni Dhammadina and to our some lay friends are here on Zoom. And also I would like to give a warm welcome to our friends who are watching this program on Facebook and YouTube Live. And I have a kind request. If you like, please feel free to share this program on your social media timelines for the greater spiritual benefit of your friends and colleagues, from family members. In that way, you could practice the Dhamma Dana, the gift of Dhamma excels all other gifts. So today is our 80th the bi-weekly sutta discussion, and 2 weeks ago we could not have this discussion because I had to do the Euro teaching tour for almost 18 days. So I'm very happy to be back at our center in Toronto. So today we are having this discussion. So we have chosen today's sutra as the Majjhima Nikaya Sutra number 27, Chulahatti Padopama Sutta, as I mentioned at the beginning. This is the sutta preached by Venerable Arhat Mahinda to the Sri Lankan king in the 3rd century BCE, Devanam Pietissa, and he was very impressed, and he himself declared to be a follower of the Buddha, and along with him, all his subject citizens also embraced the Buddha Dhamma. And so this sutra is kind of long and lots to discuss, and I would like to invite Bhante Kusala from Boston to give us a summary of this sutra, and based on that, then later on we can get into this friendly discussion. Bhante Kusala.
Thank you, Bhante. My respect to all the venerable monks and nuns who are here and who will be listening to this later today.
Yeah.
Yes, as you said, this is a very long discussion that is presented to us from the middle-length discourses of the Buddha. I will try to summarize it, and I also request the venerable monks to maybe capture some of it and expand later in our discussion today. So this is called the shorter elephant footprint simile, Chula Hatti Padopama Sutta. This is Majjhima Nikaya 27. And I think although it is named as the shorter elephant footprint simile, you could also name it as the best reasons for praising the Buddha, or complete gradual training manual, because it has complete training and it evokes faith, and that may be why it is placed in Majjhima Nikaya in the first couple of suttas, like in the 20s here. And that is exactly why maybe Arahant Mahinda chose this sutra to be the one that introduced Buddhism to Sri Lanka. So that is about the background. I would like to begin with this part. So Jāṇussoṇin happened to be the chaplain of King Pasenadī Kosala. He was driving out of Sāvatthī in the middle of the day in a totally white-roofed chariot, and he saw Pilotika. Pilotika is the wanderer, the name of a wanderer. He belonged to the Vacchāyana clan, so he will be named, addressed Vacchāyana later. That is the way in the Indian culture that people were addressed at the time. And Jāṇussoṇin, the chaplain, so Pilotika, the wanderer, coming from afar, and on seeing him said to him, "Now, where have you been?" And he said, and this was in the middle of the day. divā divassa.
Mm.
So apparently he went where he went in the morning. And then he reveals where he actually went. Sir, I have come here from the presence of the Gotama, the recluse. Samano Khalu Gotama. So recluse Gotama. And then this sparked a conversation between them. And Jāṇussoṇin asks, what do you think of his lucidity of wisdom? Paññāveyyattiyaṁ. Lucidity of wisdom. And so lucidity means clarity of expression, intelligibility. Veyyatti actually means distinction, cleverness, accomplishment of wisdom here. If you look at the Pali word, and you can find out details about the Buddha's own lucidity from Buddha's own words. If you read Mahā Sīhanāda Sutta, this is Majjhima Nikaya 12. So that will explain how the Buddha explained it. And the next question is from Jāṇussoṇin, again asking, do you think he is wise? Paṇḍito, this is the word used there. Do you think he is wise? And the answer is very interesting and impressive. He says, who am I to know such things? Who am I to even say the Buddha is wise or anything? One would surely have to be his equal to know whether he is wise or not. So he's saying that I am just a simple person. And then Jāṇussoṇin says, Master Vacchāyana praises the recluse Gotama with such high praise indeed. And the praise is that who am I? And then he says, I am no one. This is again in response. Pilotika says, I am no one. The Buddha is praised as best among gods and humans. And then the next question is, for what reasons are you so devoted to the recluse Gotama? And then he says, I am evaṁ abhippasanno. I have so much, great firm faith in the Buddha. And he gives a simile. He uses the simile in this way. Suppose that a skilled bull elephant tracker, bull elephant is Naga, that is the Pali word here. I would name the sutta as Naga Padopama Sutta because there is a slight distinction here. The elephant is usually called Hatti, and the she elephant is called Hattini. So, but here we see that the word elephant is a common translation for the sutta, but it's not important here. And so, if an elephant, so now this is a bull elephant tracker, someone who is looking for the elephant who is strongest and who has the biggest footprint. And this is a tracker, this is a person. And he were to enter the forest and he will see a large elephant footprint, and this footprint is long and broad. He would come to the conclusion that this must be a big bull elephant. That is his conclusion. In the same way, because I saw footprints of the ascetic Gotama, I came to the conclusion that the Blessed One is fully awakened Buddha. The teaching is well explained. The Sangha is practicing well. And he says 4 things. So now you can imagine a big elephant. This is the Buddha, the way he saw. And this is how he described each footprint. The first scenario is that the learned nobles who are aristocrats, who were clever, knowledgeable about the doctrines of others, as sharp as hair-splitting marksmen, they wander about, as it were, demolishing the views of others with their sharp wits. when they hear the recluse Gotama will visit such and such a village or town, they formulate a question thus: we will go to the recluse Gotama and ask him this question. If he asked like this, he will answer like this, and we will refute his doctrine in this way. And if he is asked like that, he will answer this way, and we will refute his doctrine in that way. And what happens is that the Buddha educates them, encourages them, fires up, and inspires them with his Dhamma talk, and they don't even get around to asking their question to the ascetic Gotama. So how could they refute his answer? So invariably, they become his disciples. These are about aristocrats. That is one footprint according to Pilotika. And then the learned Brahmins also go on like that. And then some clever householders, they go on questioning the Buddha like that. And then clever ascetics, they go on questioning the Buddha. But what ends up happening is they forget to ask the question, and they can't really come to winning their arguments. But they get ordained, and so according to Pilotika, these are the footprints that he saw. This is how he saw the Buddha, alluding to the notion that the Buddha is such a large elephant. And soon after that, he says, people are withdrawn from sensuality, diligent, keen, and resolute, and they realize the supreme end of the spiritual path in this very life. So they live having achieved with their own insight the goal for which they became monks. And then they say, we were almost lost. We almost perished. We used to claim that we were ascetics, we were Brahmins and perfected ones, but we were none of these things. They become so sincere about their former held views. So this was the answer he got, but Jāṇussoṇin was highly impressed with this answer, that he wanted to see the Buddha. And what he did was he got down from his chariot, arranged his robe over one shoulder, raised his joined palms toward where the Buddha was, and expressed his heartfelt sentiment 3 times, saying, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to that blessed one, homage to the perfected one, the fully awakened Buddha. And then he says, hopefully sometime or other I will go see him, and then I will engage in a discussion. And so he ends up going to see the Buddha. He pay homage to the Buddha, and he reveals this entire conversation. And he's in one way praising the Buddha. The Buddha, however, rejects such praises, saying that they are, misplaced, since they do not reflect the best reasons for praising him. So the question here is that an outsider who is not an actual follower of the Buddha is able to attain the 4 jhanas, is able to attain the 3 knowledges that the sutra describes. But only full awakening itself, that the Buddha reveals, the knowledge of the destruction of the mental defilements, the very attaining of arahanthood, the final purity, is fully and uniquely the Buddha Dharma. So many a times people miss that part, and here I will stop here a little bit and say that this sutra is actually longer than the greater discourse of the elephant footprint simile. Although this is named as Chula is smaller, but this is longer than that and has the entire path described here. And this comes before the next one. So then the Buddha completes the simile. This is actual teaching coming from the Buddha himself. And the Buddha says, Brahmin, the simile of the elephant footprint is not yet completed in detail. Vittarena paripuro. It's not completed. And then he says, the Buddha wants to help Jāṇussoṇin here by giving true account of how to actually represent himself. And the Buddha says, listen and apply your mind well, and I will speak. And the Buddha begins by the same simile and says, when the bull elephant tracker sees a large elephant's footprint, long and broad, they do not come to the conclusion that this must be a big bull elephant. He traces high up. Because there are small she-elephants, Vamanikas, tall elephants, Kalarikas, and leader elephant. These are called matriarch. Kanerukas with bigger foot size, because he knows that there can be those other elephants too. They keep following the track until they see a big footprint, long and broad, and traces. They look for tusk marks and broken branches high up, and they see the bull elephant walking, standing, sitting, or lying down at the root of a tree or in the open. This is that big bull elephant. He is the knower of elephants. So the Buddha, this is actually the Buddha. The big elephant here is the Buddha. And then the Buddha begins to teach that the Buddha appears in the world, self-discovers the Dhamma, and he offers teachings to the world. And a lay person hears this teaching and develops faith in his mind and goes and becomes a monk, because household life is seen as an impediment to complete pure practice. And they purify their sila by keeping 5 precepts. So this is where 5 precepts are introduced to the world in one way. This is one of the sutras. And with right reasoning, he thinks clearly. He doesn't just believe it because he's taught them, but with right reasoning, he abandons former habits and wants to keep the 5 precepts. And this includes so many details of not injuring plants. This person basically lived the full code of monastic vows, and they come to the fullest of it. And when they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, they experience themselves. They understand that they are now blameless, and they have blameless happiness inside themselves. And then they come to further search, and they discover noble sense restraint. They experience an unsullied bliss inside themselves. And their happiness deepens as they see that not only their actions, but also their mind is becoming free of anything unwholesome. They act with full awareness now because it's leading that way. Full awareness is sampajanya. This is called clear comprehension. To become even more aware in all activities they do, including walking, talking, and being silent. So they are fully aware, and they begin to meditate. And in that process, they realize that with right reasoning, they have to give up covetousness, and choose pure mind. And then they then give up ill will and choose compassion, kindness, and loving kindness, and give up all hindrances to come to further purity of their minds. Then they enter stages of purification and understandings called jhanas, one by one, but they don't stop there until they are sure that there is nothing beyond to go. And they start seeing past lives, they start experiencing knowledge of death and rebirth according to karmas of different people, and they also experience ending of defilements. These are the actual elephant footprints. The elephant here is the Buddha, and again, these are his footprints. He walked on this path, and people are now walking on the same path. And they realize the 4 truths. They slowly come to the conclusion. So here is actually the investigation coming to conclusion. But they don't conclude it just because they heard that the Buddha is so and so, but they conclude it themselves with their own search. And the real conclusion is that the Buddha is awakened truly. And this is how he is awakened. And so this is the actual path detailed by the Buddha. And Jāṇussoṇin praises the Buddha, saying that excellent Master Gotama, excellent, abhikkantam bho Gotama, abhikkantam bho Gotama, as if he were writing the overturned, or revealing the hidden, or pointing out the path to the lost, or lighting a lamp in the dark so people with clear eyes can see what is there. Master Gotama has made the teaching clear in many ways. So he decides to write there, go for refuge in the Buddha and his teachings and in the Sangha. And then he says, from this day forth, may Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for lifetime. Upasakang mam bhavang Gotamo dharetu ajjatagge panupetang saranang gatanti. So, however, we need to remember that the four jhanas, the three knowledges, and attaining of liberation through arahanthood, these are the Buddha's footprints. The Buddha walked on these and revealed to the world. In Pilotika admires the Buddha the way he understood it, and it's based on social and didactic skills. But the Buddha declares that his real achievement is mental cultivation, ending in full self-awakening. So in Mahā Sutta, it is Venerable Sariputta instructing monks about how to deal with disturbing speech and how to live in harmony with other monks and how to see the four elements and a full detailed account of instructions. It's also a teaching manual because Venerable Sariputta had a huge following of students learning from him. But this one specifically comes from the Buddha through this conversation. And that's all I will say. And I took so much time, and I believe that we will stop at some footprints and shine this sutta brighter today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante Kusala. Actually, as you said, it's a long sutra. That should be in the Digha Nikaya actually, because it has a lot of teachings
Right.
step by step. But it's very spiritually significant when you read the sutra, and like it's I think I see the social perspective, how a person becomes impressed of someone when lay people like those wanderers, Brahmins, warriors, special like elite people, when they go to refuge for the Buddha, Dhamma, the Sangha, they think, oh, these are the real the bulls or the footprints. But Buddha gave a different perspective. I think that's what he did. He gave a different, brought a paradigm shift. So instead of giving an impression for the for this societies, people like those elite people embracing the Buddha, but they think they have seen the Buddha. But here, Buddha gives a spiritual perspective. No, they have not. That's not the real the Buddha's footprint. So then here he gives a spiritual perspective, step by step, how to get there. And so I just have a very general question for all of you. I know, so nobody has raised hands yet. Here's a question. I'm pretty sure all of you have read the sutra many times. And how do you see this sutra? Why is it so important? And what can we learn from this sutra? And maybe whatever the part of the sutra is of great importance to you, maybe you can highlight that. And how can we explain to the people in lay terms about the significance of this sutra. So if you have any, okay, let me go to Venerable Jayasara, Bhante Jayasara. I'm pretty sure you have read the sutra, and how do you see this one?
Yes, Bhante. Actually, I'm going to have to disappoint. I know I usually can say a lot of things, but I don't really have much to say about this sutta today. When I read it, nothing, specific came up. But also, I had never heard of the importance of the sutta for the Sri Lankan tradition. This is brand new to me. So I think it might be better for the other monastics to speak on the sutta than myself. I can just listen.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So I see Venerable Shanta Sobana from California.
Yeah, thank you very much, Venerable monks and all the nuns. So actually, when it comes to the sutra, especially related to Sri Lanka, it is a very important sutra.
Yeah.
So, as we know that Venerable Mahinda, before he come to Sri Lanka, he studied about Sri Lankan background, and even he studied the language also. So he first explained this sutra. That's mean he deeply analyzed the Sri Lankan culture. Because Sri Lankan people are very easily falling to kind of like believing things without searching anything. Still, sometimes we see that nature. So it's a very important, especially why this sutra is important for nowadays. Because as we see, there are a lot of people when they want to learn about the Buddhism, or when especially when the newcomers come to this community or the Sangha, or when newcomers come to the Buddhism, this sutra give a very clear background about the teachings. So because as we know, most of time when it comes to religion, people believe about some kind of psychic powers, or some kind of third party interference, or many other ways that kind of like having miracle powers, so kind of like. But here in this sutra, Buddha mentioned that the clear understanding about ourselves and purifying our mind and go into introspection and have the clarity and get out of all the astrava, those the cankers or the influxes. That is the very clear path to gain the liberation, because still we see people use the word nibbana and the enlightenment. And nowadays, those words are very famous, and in many different ways, people try to explain it. But when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, so it's kind of like we all are kind of like elephant hunters. We're looking for bigger elephant. So when it comes to that, sometimes just seeing whoever practice the virtue or the disciplinary code, sometimes we think, oh, that is the best place. But that is what the Buddha mentioned here in another way. Sometimes people practice in many very difficult yogic practice, or very difficult vigorous rituals, but that doesn't mean that is the bigger elephant. And maybe sometimes people have kind of like give up the society and go to the forest and stay there. And we see people appreciate that. But at the same time, that is not the bigger elephant. So here, especially like in the Western world nowadays, this monkhood is a very expensive, very popular word. And in social medias, there is one guy, he's from London, now he's in Los Angeles. It's a very famous case. And he used to tell he used to be a monk. And he talked about a lot of things. A lot of people used to follow because he was a monk.
Yeah.
It gave some kind of validation for him to talk things. But finally, what happened? Somebody found out he's not a monk, and now he's go through like a lawsuit. So it's kind of like a people look into this spiritual path and they want to find a clear way, but there are a lot of people try to manipulate this. So the spirituality is the word, the spiritual is the subject nowadays, most corrupted subject now. It's becoming very marketing word.
Yeah,
So this is why it is very important when people want to practice, and it is according to the Buddha's teaching, it's very clearly, it's mentioned here, it's deep, it's not about looking someone or go behind somebody and looking this outside details. It's practicing ourselves, understanding deeply and recognizing and having the clarity within ourselves and understanding that impermanence, unsatisfactory nature and selflessness within deeply, within ourselves is the clear path to get into the liberation. So when it comes to this, especially that when people practice meditation, even nowadays, even though we have so much information, we have to be very careful within our conventional life. As we all know now, people create many information now rather than getting the right information. People create information. So one of the biggest thing is kind of like people create information about the war, even though there is no kind of like such through information, they create information and then they put it to society, and the society used to believe that. So another thing is the one of the major the problem now, this the deep fake the message, because people create videos and interfere and bringing information. It's kind of like really somebody tell it, or even maybe the real person don't know about anything. So here, in this sutra, what the Buddha mentioned, even how we can apply it to our conventional life, it is very important, especially when we hear things. And even though sometimes it makes sense, but still we have to understand. It's when we go through deeper introspection and clarity within ourselves, sometimes that information, just information, that not going to become the truth end of the day. So that is very important, because most of time the people use the informations to destroy the society, even the destroy the truth, even the destroy the people. And sometimes people, there are certain people, they don't have the ability to go beyond that. They get stuck with the information, and they can't go beyond the information. But here, what the Buddha mentioned, that especially when it comes to meditation, and especially when it comes to spiritual path, it doesn't matter whatever the information. It is our own practice. How we put ourselves to practice is the very important key point. So most of time people lazy to practice, but they go with the information. But maybe for other things it may work, but when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, it's not going to work. End of the day, how much we practice, it brings the clarity to ourselves. So that is a very important key point here. And at the same time, that giving a chance to other people, even though they say that when it comes to Jāṇussoṇin, he had some information about the Buddha. And so using that information, Buddha divert him to more deeper understanding. So that is something, when somebody come with some kind of information, rather than resisting, and using that information, take that person to more deeper understanding, is a kind of like giving a chance to everybody. So when it comes to that society, that whoever came to Buddha, end of the day, they somehow understood, and they finally understood what is the Dhamma. But the problem is within us sometimes. Even though sutras there, even though Dhamma is still there itself, sometimes we still try to manipulate the Dhamma and convert it to the way we think. So see that, end of the day, Jāṇussoṇin say, oh, sadhu, 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 I understood this, right? But ourselves, sometimes still we don't have that clarity within us. End of the day, we somehow try to get the sutra and try to manipulate and the way we want, but it not go. That when it come to the Dhamma, it's that not going to work, because we see in a very large scale, and there are a lot of people try to do it. But end of the day, it's going to be how we practice and how we understand within ourselves, especially. This is very important, whoever come to practice Buddhism, and there are a lot of people like to know about Buddhism, they want to practice Buddhism. I think this sutra give a very clear guideline where it take and how it take. It's only our practicing ourselves and clarifying and bringing the clarity to our own life is the path to get into the truth.
Yeah.
That's what I want to mention.
Venerable Shantasobana, you have actually presented a very beautiful perspective, the importance of this sutra, how people have the tendency to follow some people or even to become impressed when they see a celebrity, let's say a Hollywood person or Bollywood person or actor, actress, or a famous soccer player or tennis player or basketball champion or whatever. So when, or even a political figure, powerful political figure, when they praise Buddhism or Dharma or shows a great interest in meditation practice, people say, wow, look at that person, maybe he's the real bull elephant, see, embracing the Dharma. And then it may convince people to follow it, but it also could be misleading, not understanding, not seeing the real bull elephant. I think as we continue to find, maybe this is a way of teaching us a way of how to discover, how to find a real bull elephant. Here is referring to the Buddha, Arahants, and giving some steps, gradual steps, how to become a bull elephant. So, and at the same time, when we say now, very recently, one monk told me that he was traveling somewhere in Malaysia or Indonesia. So there was a guy, when he say, oh, you say, I take refuge in the Buddha, Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. So have you seen the Buddha to take refuge in him? How do you know that he is the Buddha? What are the ways to understand that Buddha in order to express yourself that I take refuge in the Buddha? So this is the answer. This is the sutra actually highlights the footprints of the bull elephant is not just the sila or sense restraint or clear comprehension or just abandoning the five hindrances, but the real footprints are the jhanas, three knowledges, and the destruction of the cankers or defilements, and eventually realizing the Four Noble Truths by becoming the Buddha and Arahant. So that is the real bull elephant the Buddha is referring to. So now the questions, this could be referring to us. Where are we at this in this journey? Have we become closer to that becoming that the bull elephant? So maybe this is something to reflect on. I don't know if okay, Venerable Trudeau from Florida. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. Salutations to all of the most venerable bhikkhus and bhikkhunis present here. First and foremost, I'd like to say that all of the most venerable bhikkhus and bhikkhunis here have in fact left a footprint on all of our lives. Blessed are those who are present today, who are able to see clearly, hear clearly all of the rarity of the representatives of the monastic order, and a scratch mark of that, as the monastics and monks and nuns are living teachings of the Buddha, the living Dhamma of the teachings of the Buddha. And with what we reflect on that footprint and that scratch mark, that slash, that tusk, I think we all have seen an elephant tusk and how they actually take a real elephant tusk and glorify it into bedrooms and businesses in Asia. And to realize that an individual that wears orange robes, saffron robes, red robes is significant icon, an icon of peace, colors dedicated to peace and enlightenment, of safety, of the threefold training to ensure the well-being and the continuity of the world that we see today. Without it, without the monastic order, we would be in a complete mess. This was a very comprehensive sutta where it encompasses the threefold training. And, you know, I'm now training a lot of novice monks ages 13, 16, charged with the responsibility to ingrain the precepts into them, and on a more clinical level, the Four Noble Truths and how they can apply that to their life and teach it to their friends. It's a challenge I have for myself so that we have a living continuity of the next generations of clinical monks that can repeat everything that we're doing here. I find that our world pulls our fellow humans away from themselves, and it becomes harder for any human to replicate and test the teachings, whether it is true and correct. When we look at the threefold training, first we see virtue on here, and one would ask oneself, when it comes to life, how many have taken a life of an animal? And when you did in fact took that life because of hunting, how did that make you feel at night? How did that make you feel coming home? How did that make you feel when you turn on Facebook and to watch cows cry before they're being slaughtered? The conscience and awareness of such animals and the emergence of research into how they can think and feel and their expression of that feeling leads us, if your heart is not moved, then, well, we have another problem there. To reflect on that, all of this has to do with the word peace. Though I agree that most of us humans don't know what a peaceful life is. So if we don't know what peaceful life is, we must look at what it is not. And taking a life does not lead to a peaceful life. When we look at stealing, how many of us have stolen before? And what was the psychological effects of that, taking things that is not given? Then when it comes to sex, how much energy, virya, it robbed you from being fully human. And of course, speech, which gets humans into trouble left and right all day, every day. We can't even imagine the magnitude of the effects of speech. Then we move down a little bit and we look at he eats only once a day. And today my father and I sat and we spoke about the prevalence of diabetes. And my dad goes on, and I said, Dad, you know, all this can be cured quite quickly had people just eat once a day. It would put a lot of industries out of business. Nothing can be more real in testing out the teachings of the Buddha when a monk asks you, how many times a day do you actually eat? Well, you know, I go to the market and everyone knows I get on TikTok, and where I go, I think of humanity. Where I go, I think of teachings, and randomly I make videos. And one of the latest popular video is one of the main determinant of death is food. And, you know, everyone knows I love M&Ms. I have a sweet tooth. every year the M&Ms get bigger. The Reese's Buttercup gets bigger. It used to be a 2-pack, now it's 4. So you have to think, understanding systems is somebody's talking. Some CEO is picking up on the other line, talking to another CEO and said, hey, we need you to make the candy a little bigger so they can eat more and make it very addictive so they can get diabetes so that we can sell more metformin, 500 milligrams. So when we look at, how the Dhamma clinically protects you from a clinical level, abstain from dancing, singing, watching shows, how much time that wastes us. Abstain from wearing garland and beautifying himself. You know how much haircuts cost these days? I overjoyed. I find these little small things to make myself happy. And one of them is I get to go and shave when the time is right. And I go, every time when I shave, I'm saving like $30. My students are reporting to me $30 over the hair thing. One of the novices is very attached to his hair as it is growing now in 0.75 to almost an inch. But in the pictures, it looks horrendous. The picture that I sent to Venerable Sarnapala, it looks like 2 inches, but please assure that I'm following the rules. And I realize that the time for this novice to go is probably very soon because he's so attached to his hair. You just got to laugh at some of these rules that saves us a lot of money if we took it seriously. But we take ourselves, we're so attached to ourselves. All of this has to do with detachment and how difficult that is to grasp. And so moving on to the hindrances, mindfulness, alert, sense, restraint, the jhanas. If any one of us was to test our students or fellow listeners, have you brushed even close to the jhanas and the first jhanas by mindfulness of the breath? Ooh, I'm not sure who can pass that preliminary test. When it comes to page 7, if you print it out on page 7, this is the one where hopefully everyone start grabbing a monk quickly and sitting next to them if you're in the West. Also, by the way, I regret not coming to Los Angeles to see Venerable Santosobana and Venerable Sanatha Vihara while I was in Arizona. So I'm making my way back over there soon because I wanted to sit with you guys and just absorb your wisdom as I did with Venerable Sarnapala. Now, page 7, I saw clearly here when the Buddha had insight about these beings who are endowed with bad conduct of body, speech, and mind, reviled the noble ones, held wrong views, undertook actions under the influence of wrong views. Okay, that's really important. And with a qualified, authentic, and experienced teacher, full of life, who have lived through the longevity of this life cycle, you are able to pick up certain things that the venerable ones will say to you and point to you who are the wise and who are the fools. And I think that's also one that keeps all of us from being at peace, is the association, constant, perpetual association with fools. And even though some of these things are indeed difficult to discern, one must choose a teacher, a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, to guide you onto the path. And lastly, fermentation, mental fermentation. Fermentation is defined as growing, the art of growing. And so hopefully everyone don't grow more in stress, living a kinder and wiser life, reflecting on the beauty of the vocabulary and its direct clinical understanding and applications to one's life. And lastly, I think that all of us have a duty and responsibility to leave a footprint on this earth, on this planet. You all have a privilege to know and a duty to act for our young ones, and how scary it is to look at how far our children are away from us and how they don't listen to us as parents, as brothers and sisters and siblings, how far they are from the spiritual path, from the holy life. This sutta today talks about the holy life, and we can inspire other people by and through our own change. And I believe that everyone can be a mark, a scratch. And if you can't leave that deep of a footprint, it's okay. Be a scratch, because that leaves some form of inspiration for others, and we can use more of that to reflect on a wise human, a human that came and gave more and took less. Some of the many things that you can do practicing dana, practicing bhavana, and adopting the threefold training. Thank you, as I like to conclude my talk and yield the floor to the other monks and nuns.
Thank you, Venerable Tridao. Actually, you brought up a lot of interesting points, like the significance of the practice of sila, and how even it could help us. Even just now, I got an idea, maybe for our next bi-weekly sutta discussion, we could have a very interesting friendly discussion on the health or wellness through sila and morality. And maybe, the list of the things, the sila practices found in this sutra, it would be nice to highlight those teachings in the positive side of this practice. And maybe it would be of immense. Just now I got just the glimpse of maybe kind of insight how important it is for our health and wellness. The sila is very important to discuss in detail.
I think I just wanted to make something catchy and make more people smile today. There's this catchy saying with the car insurance thing, right? You can save a bunch of money on your car insurance by switching to Geico. Well, my thing is you can save a bunch of money on your car insurance by switching to the holy monastic life, or the holy life of the Theravadan instructions, such as the hair thing, saving $30, saving your hair.
Actually, to save a lot of money. Okay, so I'm wondering whether Venerable Sanata Vihari has anything to say. I think you had empty cloud. You should ask all the empty cloud monastics to join the discussion.
Vandana Bhante, Vandana to all the venerables. Couple things came to mind, Bhante. One is that, sometimes people forget about the step-by-step instructions that the Buddha gave us, or they try to ignore them because we're so used to wanting things now, right? So in our society now, everything has to be instant. We want everything now. So we're always looking for a shortcut, right? Is there a special chanting that I can do? Is there a special meditation that I can do? Is there a special sutra that I can read? Is there a special puja that I can do? We're always trying to find a shortcut, right? Oh, even in Buddhism, through the development of the Buddhist traditions, right? The traditions keep saying, this is the fastest way. This is the fastest way. This is the fastest way. So even Buddhists themselves are always trying to make shortcuts in this way. But the Buddha taught us the gradual path, right? The gradual training that we need to go step by step by step by step. And the first step is probably one that's very difficult for a lot of Westerners. I noticed myself, Bhante, which is saddha.
Yeah.
Saddha's like a bad word in the West, right? Faith is a dirty word. You think if you have faith, then you're a fool, you're stupid, you're ignorant if you have faith. But right here we see that saddha is the key, right? The key into really going into the practice. So we need some faith, right? It doesn't mean blind faith, but you should have some faith that it is possible to purify yourself, right? That you're not damned to suffering, right? That you're not stuck in samsara, but that there is a way out, and there is beings who have found the way out, right? And they're sharing with you the way to get out. So we need that.
Saddha, the rational faith.
Yes, based on evidence and experience and on all these categories. And sometimes people misinterpret the Kalama Sutta, right? They think that means no faith. Like it's all hyper rational, but that's not what it's saying, right? It's saying not to blindly follow those things either, right? Don't blindly follow faith. Don't blindly follow a teacher. Don't blindly follow even logic or reasoning, right? All these things shouldn't be followed blindly, but that doesn't mean that we throw them away, right? We still should follow a teacher. Teachers are useful. We still should have faith. Faith is useful. We should still follow the suttas, the books, the holy books. They're very useful too. So we don't just throw everything away and rely on ourselves. We need to have some faith, right? We need to have some faith. So I think that's something that is very important. And as I was saying earlier too, that not trying to find shortcuts. You have to do the work, right? A lot of people, they do the meditation, but they don't want to do the sutta study. You have to do it, right? A lot of people want to do the sutta study, but they don't want to keep all the precepts. They want to go out dancing at night and drinking and doing drugs and have 2 or 3 boyfriend and girlfriends. Sorry, that's not going to work. You know, you need to follow the recipe. You're not going to get the cake that the Buddha's giving us if you don't follow the recipe. You're going to get something different, right? You're going to get something completely different. And I think that brings me to the next thing that came to mind about how Buddhism is secularized in the West, right? So that's what they're trying to do. You know, they want to get the parts of the cake that they like and have their own cake. But that's not the Buddhist cake. You know, it's something else. You're doing something else. It's no longer Buddhism. You know, and here we see that at the highest level of Buddhism, there's no way that we can make it secular, because we're talking about looking at our past lives. We're talking about seeing beings arising and ceasing, right, due to their karma being reborn, right? And we're talking about these very kind of these elements that we can't see that carry us from life to life, known as the asavas, right? That perpetuate suffering, which are not empirical things. We can't measure them. They're not like things that we can touch in the world, right? And they keep us going from one life to another. So to be a Buddhist is to have faith in the Buddha and to trust in the Buddha and to have this kind of transcendental, maybe metaphysical view that you can't prove at this moment, right? So that's really what it means to be a Buddhist. You can't remove faith and remove, you know, karma and remove past and future lives and remove. When you do that, you don't have Buddha anymore, because a Buddha is a being who is freed from samsara, free from rebirth, free from karma. If you take all those things away, you don't have a Buddha. You have like a Socrates in an orange toga, right? That's what you get. So it's not real Buddhism. So we have to be very careful, because we have that tendency with shortcuts. We have that tendency with trying to make things our way, as we were saying, as one of the Bhantes was saying earlier, right? We get the sutta and we try to see it as Bhante. Yeah, Sobana was saying, we get the sutta and we try to interpret it our way, right? We get one sutta like the Kalama Sutta and we use our Western lens. Oh, this must fit my Western view. I have to put it into my Western view, or whatever your view is. If you have a magical view, then this has to go into my magical view. So whatever our view is, we always limit it instead of trying to see it for what it is. So I think it's very important that we.
Here's a question asked in the Facebook. Is confidence a better word than faith?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that that's just like trying to get around it, right? You're trying to dance around it because it's too difficult for you to deal with. You have some resistance to the word. We have to accept it. Buddhism is not about running away from difficult things. There's faith there. So you have to practice introspection and maybe talk to a friend, talk to a monk, or talk to a therapist. Why do you have this resistance towards faith, right? What is the negative association you have in your culture or in your own mind towards it, right? So we have to understand these things so we can solve the problem, right? And then we'll find some reasons why we have problems with faith. And actually, we're not talking about blind faith. So yes, if by faith we mean blind faith, then we don't need that, right? Yeah. But we do need faith. It doesn't have to be blind. So these are kind of things that people in a lot of modern people and Western people have resistance to. But that just shows that our cultural conditioning, right? And we need to be able to work through our cultural conditioning to take the Buddha's words as they are and not try to manipulate them to make us comfortable. Right? And there's a lot of that happening.
I don't know whether you may remember. I know you have great admiration for Venerable Bhante Punnaji, and he actually gave a lot of interpretations to some words, right? So the word he used, saddha, he gave interpretation like sat means goodness, dha means to uphold. So saddha means upholding goodness.
Yes. Yes, and that's useful. because the sadha has to come from somewhere, right? What are we appreciating? What are we devoting ourselves to? What are we worshiping? What do we have faith in? Well, we have faith in goodness, right? That's the faith that we have in something good. You're not going to have faith in something that's bad that doesn't work. If something doesn't work, then you don't have faith in it. We have faith in things that work, or we should have faith in things that work. So that's how I take that interpretation. But all of this to say, Bhante, is that, you know, we should follow the gradual training. We should listen to what the Buddha said, you know, not try to find shortcuts, not try to make things the way that suits us, like Bhante said, and read the sutta into our own worldview, right? We have to put our own view aside for the moment and follow it. And we have to realize that this Buddhist project is more than self-care. This is not a self-care project, right? This is to be free from samsara, to become awakened, to become an arahant. This is not a mundane path. This is a super mundane path, right? This is beyond everything that we know. And I think as long as we remember that, then all these suttas like this can be very useful. But if we get this map and put it on the wrong terrain, it's not going to match. It's not going to work out, Bhante.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like even in finding the real bull elephant, let's say the real bull elephant here is being referred to the Buddha or the Arahant, and is beginning with this sila practice, actually, right? Even in the sutra. The first is the foundation, and then the indriya samvara, sense restraint, and the sati sampajanya, clear comprehension, and then getting rid of, abandoning the 5 hindrances. So these 4 practices help us discovering the first footprint of the real bull elephant, right? The jhana. So this is an interesting point to actually discuss in depth. So I see Venerable Bhante Kusala from Boston raising hand. What's in your mind, Bhante Kusala?
Many things, Bhante. So as I was listening to Bhante Sanatha Vihari and you, I wonder if trust could be a good word, because trust, I think, has some connection to self-reasoning and coming to conclusion with really trusting that this actually works, this medicine works, and this is why it works. So I think I would still stick with Saddha for that. Yesterday I was walking in the neighborhood with a friend of mine, and we happened to stop at this person who happened to walk a dog, very cute dog. And my friend asked to pet this dog. And so in that process, we were introduced to this person. He strongly believes in Christianity and was advocating for Jesus, but at the same time, he has his medical profession. He's an oncologist and has family history of his mom being a beauty queen, but how she was abused by her neighbor, and this person who abused her ultimately had to confess that he did this because he developed cancer and he couldn't die peacefully because this was bothering him, and he confessed it to this person's mother's grandmother. And so the concept of karma is I think is strongly evident here, that this person really felt the karma that he did, abusing, molesting a child. And unfortunately, the grandparents and parents did not want this go any further, and she was warned to not talk about it, not say anything to her dad. And this made her suppress this feeling, and then she became rebellious in her life, and she ended up becoming a beauty queen, but that put her in the path of drugs and alcohol. And ultimately, she had a billionaire son and this son, but the son who is a medical doctor, but she chose to live on the streets as homeless because she could just be free and continue her alcoholism, and she ended up dying. She died young. Um, and she could have lived longer and in comforts of her billionaire son, but she chose to live that way. And you can see how another human's actions contribute to destroying someone's life, ultimately uh, taking their life. So this is actually killing. Our wrong actions contribute to um, killing another person slowly. That is, and on the other hand, when you walk in the neighborhood, you have to have a kind of compassion and kindness to be receptive to such conversations and wear a smile on your face. And then we couldn't go very far, and another person from faith also approached me and started asking questions about Buddhism, and he was comparing his own experience of having a lavish lifestyle, but how he immediately felt guilty upon reading gospel, and he wanted to correct himself because he felt like he was doing something wrong. And he started his faith practice from there, and he continues questioning. And one time he shared genuinely that one time he went to a physicist, one of his professors, and said something about God, and God created all this. And his professor took a minute and responded, why then this God created children with defects? So he was shocked with this question. It's as if asking why then there are diseases in the world, why there are people with mental illness in the world, why did the creator created this? So he has his own journey asking questions this way. And I was sharing my perspective out of my ignorance, I said. And I think in all these conversations, what I saw happening is that my own practice coming to life, and it's a place to experience what we have actually practiced. One thing, we could get angry about all these questions and we can ignore them, saying that you have no idea what Buddhism is about. We can be arrogant that way, but you could also tap into that compassion and be there. At least, it could mean listening to these people for 45 minutes standing in high heat in the hot summer. But I thought this is great. This is what is happening now. And in the next couple of minutes would be the end of my life. But at least if I have spent the time that I was spending in my life um, with compassion and kindness, it is the ultimate test to our practice. And we could continue this practice wherever we go. And this helps us with living with other monks. This helps us with living with people out there in the world. And the moment a person realizes, people think that we have two lives, but the actual life starts when we realize that we have only one. And in that process, we start to prioritize who do we spend time with, what should happen to us, what is best for us. I think Venerable Santasobana um pointed out clearly that ultimate question is, ultimate conclusion is what it does to us. Where do we place ourselves in this practice? And it is with this kind of questioning that we come to abandon anger. Because someone in another discussion asked, when you, at the moment, at the heat of anger, how do we actually stop it? And then I questioned, when the kettle is boiling, can you actually say the kettle to stop boiling? It has reasons for it to boil. Someone is putting fire underneath it, and the kettle has to boil. There is no way that you can do it at the moment. This is why there is a training for us. And in that training, we take lots of hardships to abandon certain things. You see the drawbacks of anger yourself. You see how harmful it is, how it affects your lungs, how it affects how holding grudges or living with difficult people, holding them in your heart all the time, as they are the wrong ones and they are the ones causing the suffering. You know, holding this kind of frustration in your heart makes you sick. This, one of the luxuries in life is to have a peaceful home, and this home actually means your mind being a peaceful home. It is unlimited. It is your responsibility to hold whoever is bothering you in a dear way or an ugly way. You can do both. It is our choice. And with right reasoning, when that kettle is boiling, we realize that you take yourself out of it. That is the first thing. This is anatta teaching. You take yourself out of it by not feeding any more fire to it. Then the kettle will stop boiling and it will cool down by itself. So this is so important for us to realize that it is not at the heat of anger that we turn anything off. It is actually through gradual training, by realizing how dangerous it is to hold on to anger. These are old habits of ours. And we abandon anger. And there is another option. By abandoning it, you just don't keep an empty heart. He dwells with an awareness devoid of ill will. This is such a pure awareness. This is the instruction of this sutta. So important to all of us, monks and lay people, to kings and rulers, politicians, and everyone. Abandon this anger because of right reasoning, seeing how it burns you, how it is like, drinking poison and wanting somebody else to die. It doesn't happen that way. See this first. And this way, when you are angry, you will quickly remember that you can't, by getting angry, you only do more destruction to yourself and destruction to others. And you will not be mindful when you speak with anger, because you will say the wrong thing, and these are verbal daggers, and these things kill other people for a long time. And anything you say, any action you do, the mind is involved with it. 50 years later, you remember it, it is right there. This is why mental purity for us is so important. Whether it is your co-workers, husband, wives, between among and children, it is so important to uh, have a compassionate heart in you. When someone is causing you trouble, you have compassion in your heart. Never think that you don't have compassion in heart. Always think that you can choose compassion to see that this person is suffering. One time, this Western monk was going to go to England, and he was a student of Venerable Ajahn Chah. And then the student started thinking, will I get dana? Will I get a place to stay? And Ajahn Chah only asked one thing. Are you saying that England does not have kind people? That's all. So that means you can go there and you will discover gems, people with gems like hearts. The rest will unfold on its own. When we take the control away, we start to see the wonders happening. This is Dhamma coming to life. And with that understanding, you abide sympathetic with the welfare of all living beings. Isn't this beautiful? To choose loving kindness, to choose compassion, because you see that there is no use of holding on to anger. So you give something else to your heart, something so beautiful, something so liberating, something that is to be cultivated with more reasoning, with taking time, seeing the benefits that it does to you. Otherwise, you are pouring from an empty cup and you are just talking words that are empty. This is why, no matter how much meditation you practice, you need to apply it into daily life and see how that practice is actually changing your life for in good direction. And this is called he cleanses his mind of ill will and anger. How good this is for you. It benefits you first before it benefits anyone else. You can just laugh at things and forgive easily because you prioritize it. What I have is only this mind, and by purifying it, I enjoy greater goodness. I enjoy a life that most people don't have, and I enjoy this kind of life because I see the drawbacks of anger, and I can always choose to complain of things or just forget the complaining and appreciate the beauty of life. Appreciate good health, appreciate the fact that the sun is shining, there's oxygen out there, birds are singing, and bus drivers are driving their buses, and garbage collectors are picking up garbage. Look how many good things are happening out there. Things to celebrate, things to appreciate, that you wake up every day, you have a roof over you, and you have food to survive, and there's no need to worry about empty things out there. So I think there's endless things to share like that. I will stop there. Thank you, Bante, for the opportunity.
No, thank you, Bhante Kusala. Actually, so I have a suggestion and proposal or a project for you. Can you ask the kettle to stop boiling? That would be a hit book.
Right. This will be your second book.
If you don't start, I'm going to start soon.
No, go ahead, Bhante. I have mudita in my heart. I feel so much joy that you came up with it, and please go ahead.
It's a very catchy title.
I'll be happy to read it. And yeah.
Bhante Shanta Sobana, what's in your mind?
Yeah, actually, I want to add something to this Bhante Kusala mentioned. That is very important because most of people think being in the present moment going to fix all the problems. But when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, that we know the suffering, cause of suffering, and cessation, path to cessation. So when it comes to that, there is a term called Anupada Dukkha Nirodha. Anupada Dukkha Nirodha means there is an unborn suffering in front of us. It always depends on the present moment of the intention. So if the person has the ability to feel that it doesn't matter whatever the situation happened in the past, in the present moment, if the person consciously take a decision to purify or try to develop the loving kindness, compassion, or the wisdom, or the generosity. So according to that, what will happen in the future, whatever the suffering waiting for us going to change. So it is a more different than just being in the present, because just being in the present not going to fix any situation. Even the snipers or the killer, the serious killers, they are more being in the moment better than us sometimes. That's why they become successful. But here, that whatever arises in us, we have to have the ability to purify, because when it comes to the Dhamma, the mind is like the water. There's no need to add anything. Only thing is we have to take out all the unnecessary things from it. As example, if somebody want to buy a filter, if the filter adds something to the water, it's not going to purify the water. So what the filter does, it take out all the unnecessary things from the water. So the gold itself no need any shine. Because so same like the mind itself has the ability to find the tranquility state. But the thing is, our mental formation, our desires, our own habitual patterns are the problems. So as Venerable Sanath Vihari mentioned, that people like to change, people like to become more better, but they don't want to give up what they keep doing.
That's the problem.
Huh? So they want to do all the things they want to do, and end of the day they want to be the success. They look for the success, but it's not going to happen. So that's why when it comes to sometimes suffering, we can't teach. Maybe they have to suffer themselves to understand. Here, this Jāṇussoṇin in the sutra, that he was wearing white, and he had a very that white, all this horse cart and everything, and he was went to the city and he was giving gift to other people. So wearing white, it's kind of like he may kind of like went through all these sensual pleasures and had the luxurious life, and then end of that all he may look for kind of like a transformation. So it's kind of like when it comes to people, that's why in this sutra is mentioned, it's kind of like if the person look for freedom, if that person recognize it is in the community of Sangha, it's kind of like he found out the like this empty sky. It's like this emptiness give the ultimate freedom. And if the person give up that all the conventional barriers, it's kind of like that person become like the bird. So it's kind of like the person need to be mature to understand what is the freedom. Because when it comes to the ignorance, one thing is suffering we take as the satisfaction. No? So ignorance we take as the wisdom. So sometimes people, they have to go through suffering to understand. And maybe when the person is suffer that not enough, maybe it is very difficult to teach for them. So it is, but whoever listening to this, if the person went through difficulties and if the person go through hard time, if anybody look for change, the very first principle, start to change whatever you keep looking, whatever you keep doing, the way you keep talking, the things you're reading, start to change your day-to-day activities. That basically that foundation will help you to slowly change your life. So otherwise, and most of the time people look for happiness and satisfaction. Just wishing itself, it's not going to come to us. And according to this sutra, that once the person listen to the Buddha's teaching, once he come to the monkhood and he give up his personal desires and he start to practice and start to go through this disciplinary code. And when we come to that disciplinary, and according to the Buddha's teaching, it is not just the discipline. It's just being disciplined not going to take us to the liberation. We have to have a higher virtue, higher mental state, higher wisdom. So we have to have ability to push ourselves little bit, go beyond this conventional level of lifestyle. So that will help us to go into more better place. So as a result of that, by the time it will help us to have the tranquility state. That tranquility state help us to get out of the 5 hindrance. That will help us to enter to the jhanas. Through the jhanas, even the jhana is not the big bull elephant, because there were many people used to practice that also. But after the jhana also, when it comes to the vipassana knowledge, so that is where the person can understand what is this Buddha thought. And other thing is this Pilotika, the Brahmana Pilotika, he understood the Buddha according to all the Brahman society came to Buddha and tried to argue with the Buddha. So the Buddha, even before getting to the argument that Buddha gave the answers. So looking that, Pilotika understood the Buddha is a kind of like a big bull elephant. So that is what most of time today happens. People always look, and if the person talk nicely, and if there is a big audience, a million followers, people start to believe that person. But when it comes to that, it's changing ourselves is the very key point. Because everything impermanent, everything conditioned by cause and effect. So if anybody understand that foundation, so anybody can attain to liberation.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. I see some comments, there are people actually, they are really enjoying this discussion. They say this is a very interesting discussion where we can refresh our Dhamma knowledge with ever metta, and another person is saying quite enlightening. And so we had a very interesting discussion today. In fact, Jāṇussoṇin, the brahmin, was very convinced. I think the word Venerable Sanatana Vihara used saddha. Maybe being convinced is the first step. And then because he was convinced, then he started searching. Okay, I really want to meet this real bull elephant. And then Buddha gave a different explanation how to find the real bull elephant. And he saw the real bull elephant. And that's why he declared himself Buddhang Saranang. From today, please accept me as your disciple. So this is a very interesting discussion we had. I'm very grateful to all of you. And so now I would like to invite our Venerable Bhante Nanda from Long Island in New York to recite the Ovada Patimokkha verses.
Thank you, Bhante. Sabba pāpassa akaranang කුසලස්ස උපසම්පදා සචිත්ත පරියෝදපනං ඒතං බුද්ධාන ශාසනං කන්ති පරමං තපෝති නිබ්බානං පරමං වදන්ති බුද්ධා නහි පබ්බජිතෝ පරූපඝාති න සමනෝ හෝති පරං විහෙඨයන්තෝ අනුපවාදෝ අනුපඝාතෝ පාතිමොක්ඛේච සංවරෝ මත්තඤ්ඤුතාච භත්තස්මින් පන්තංච සයනාසනං අධිචිත්තේච ආයෝගෝ ඒතං බුද්ධාන ශාසනං.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Bhante Nanda, for beautifully reciting the Ovada Patimokkha verses, which contain the essence of the Buddha's teaching. And we feel like as a Buddha, we are very close to the Buddha mind and in his presence. So I'm very grateful to all the venerable monks and lay Dhamma friends for joining us this discussion. Today we had the 80th bi-weekly sutra discussion, 80. So, I always feel happy, and of course we are able to run this bi-weekly sutra discussion because of the competent monks and nuns like you. You all are sharing beautiful stories and insights, and people are really enjoying this discussion. So I'm very grateful to you. And may all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha be with you. May Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect and guard all of you with the divine blessings for your health and safety. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all sentient beings be well, happy, and peaceful. With these loving thoughts in mind, I would like to conclude today's biblical discussion. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time. Until then, stay well and happy, and good night from Toronto, Canada. Okay, bye-bye.